Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, I figured because we've reached the 4-week mark, at least in terms of college football, that I would unveil my metric rankings. Now, metric rankings is kind of a weird term, but basically, I take all the data at the college football level in terms of team-based data, and then come to a ranking system based on now here's the main thing is when it comes to the ranking system, it's based on three main things. One, how many wins the team has. Two, the strength of schedule they've faced up to this point. And then three, how they perform in various metrics on their own compared to the rest of college football. So for example, when you look at team offenses based on the data I collected from 2009 to 2016, teams that typically win 90 percentile or higher wins in college football typically score 83.92 when it comes to points on offense. So basically, offenses that typically score a lot of points, above average points, are typically going to be winning the most games out of everybody else. Same thing comes to completion percentage. Same thing. A lesser extent comes to fumbles, though, interceptions. But there is some data pointing towards the fact that you do want to have a lower turnover ratio. You want to have at least an above average turnover ratio in terms of limiting your turnovers. You want to have less turnovers compared to everybody else, essentially. So when it comes to offenses, it's clear based on data from 2009 to 2016 that the teams that typically win more games, score points, have fairly good completion percentage overall, and don't turn the football over as much compared to everybody else. I mean, that's basically the basic tenets when it comes to win percentile. And then when you look at the defensive side of the football, the same correlations exist except the opposite. So instead of the adage of scoring points, defenses that prevent points at a higher percentage typically win more football games. As well as limiting completion percentage, as well as creating more fumbles, more interceptions, more turnovers, typically speaking. So from that kind of perspective, you kind of get the point that from 2009 to 2016, teams that score more points and have defenses that allow less points have good completion percentage and don't allow a lot of turnovers and also create a lot of turnovers on defense. Those are the teams that typically win a lot of football games. And just to show you how this ranking system works in action, I'm going to show you the top 25, at least the final top 25 in every single year from 2009 all the way up to 2016. So this was the top 25 in 2009. This was the top 29 in 2010, or top 25 in 2010. This was the top 25 in 2011. This was the top 25 in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and of course 2016. So for the most part, this system is not that bad of a ranking system. It's not exactly 100% accurate in terms of predicting who's going to win the national championship and stuff like that, because there's definitely more variables that I want to explore when it comes to that particular phenomenon. But I do think it is a good sort of standard way of judging the strengths and weaknesses of teams in terms of like how to take how teams perform number-wise and then look at how they perform in terms of strengths and weaknesses and all that kind of stuff. So that is how this system is made. This is how the ranking system it was created. Was simply to look at all the data, and then boom, spit out at least stuff like that. Now it's important to keep in mind, as with all the data that I do on this channel, is we're not even halfway through college football yet, nor are we halfway through the NFL yet. So it shouldn't be the end. Like, things are going to change dramatically as the season goes on. Players get injured, lots of stuff happens. So don't take these rankings with a grain of salt. However, I do think that if you inevitably get to the same place that the rankings led to in 2016, 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012, etc., then I think it's good. So if every week you use this system and then eventually you get to the point where you're spitting out the same results or similar results to what was being spit out in 2016, 2015, 2014, etc., then I think you have a good backbone of what you're doing, if that makes any sense. So that's what I wanted to do. So in terms of 2017, so I collected all the data in college football in terms of team offense, team defense, and I added a couple layers of stuff. I added offensive/defensive points combined score, so the O/D points term that just deals with the combining of offensive points plus defensive points allowed. In terms of if you have an offense that scores a lot of points, you score higher. If you have a defense that doesn't allow a lot of points, you score higher. And then that basically encompasses that score. The all score encompasses everything, so it encompasses all the offensive data points and all the defensive data points, and then it's scored that way compared to every team since 2009. Strength of schedule is also with everything combined. And then the final ranking is just a combination of the wins compared to strength of schedule on top of how they're performing overall when it comes to allowing points and creating points as offense. And this is what 2017 looks so far. So these are the top 25 teams based on this system. Alabama, of course, is number 1, followed by Oklahoma, Penn State, Michigan, Clemson, South Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, Wisconsin, USC, Ohio in the MAC, North Carolina State, Washington, Navy, Wake Forest, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Iowa, San Diego State, Louisville, Duke, Houston, Texas A&M, Minnesota, and SMU. This is through 4 weeks. So if you looked at the previous years from 2009 to 2016, if the season ended today, this is what that group would look like. We still have a lot more football to go, but I do think that this is just sort of a fun sort of ranking system to see how everybody stacks up, what type of schedule they're facing, because I always think that's really important, is that the strength of schedule it tremendously affects things, because if you're playing a tough schedule and you're just not having, if you lose a game or this or that, I mean, you're playing a tough schedule versus a team that's like going undefeated, and you didn't really play anybody, during that schedule. So I think strength of schedule definitely is something that should be considered when you're looking at data. But so far, this is what this list looks like. Again, of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics, and if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.